Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the matter.
And today, we are really diving into something pretty profound.
Yeah, we're taking on this intense story about guilt, about loyalty, and just the aching weight of history.
All of it set against this really fractured landscape of Afghanistan, stretching from the 1970s all the way through the post-9/11 era.
We've gone through a huge stack of sources, articles, historical context, deep character analyses, to really give you a shortcut to understanding this whole world.
It's a compelling journey for sure. And it really focuses on this idea that the past is never, it's never just over.
Right.
It's an active, corrosive presence. And as the core source puts it, it's something that claws its way out.
And that's our mission today. We want to trace those claw marks, starting from this one very privileged household in Kabul.
And follow them all the way to a search for atonement years later in a homeland that's just been shattered.
Okay, so let's unpack this setup. Because the opening hook is, it's an immediate, devastating plunge into regret.
It really is. We meet the narrator, Amir, in San Francisco. It's December 2001.
And on the surface, he's built this stable life, right? He's an American writer, he's married, living in this quiet suburban bubble.
But that stability is a total illusion.
Yeah.
He is absolutely crippled by memory. And the trigger for this whole narrative collapse is so specific, so symbolic.
The kites.
The kites. He sees a pair of red kites soaring over Golden Gate Park. And this image, which should be about freedom, about sport,
Yeah.
it just yanks him right back.
Back to a freezing, overcast day, the winter of 1975.
Exactly.
And that one moment, that 1975 kite tournament, it's the thing that has defined his entire adult life.
It's not just a memory he thinks about now and then. The source says it's an active haunting that's been peering into the deserted alley of his mind for 26 years.
Wow.
And the specific echo that rings in his head is the voice of his childhood companion, Hassan.
Uttering that promise.
For you, 1,000 times over.
And that phrase is, it's the DNA of the whole story, isn't it?
It is. It signifies this boundless, unconditional devotion that Amir just catastrophically failed to reciprocate.
It's the constant reminder of his unatoned sin, the lie that he's been living with for decades.
Which is why the phone call is so pivotal.
The call from Rahim Khan, his father's oldest friend and business partner.
Rahim Khan calls from Pakistan, and he doesn't just ask Amir to visit. He issues this ultimate challenge.
The mission statement for his entire adult life.
There is a way to be good again.
And that phrase is just. It's a lifeline thrown into Amir's moral abyss.
It immediately sets the tone. This isn't just a look back at a lost world. It's a quest.
A quest for redemption. It forces Amir to go back to the very heart of the trauma he ran from.
Yeah, the entire story really hinges on the possibility, or maybe the impossibility, of genuine atonement.
So to get the depth of that sin and the stakes of that redemption, we have to go back to the foundation of their lives in Kabul.
In the Wazir Akbar Khan district, which was a very opulent area. And the source makes it so clear that Amir and Hassan shared the most intimate beginnings you could imagine.
Right. They were intertwined from birth.
Literally. They were nursed by the same woman. Amir's mother died in childbirth, and Hassan's mother, well, she ran off. So they shared a wet nurse.
They spoke their first words under the same roof.
And that shared foundation is just so crucial to understanding the tragedy of what happens later.
The source even notes the contrast in those first words, which is, it's deeply foreshadowing.
It is. Amir's first word was Baba, father.
Showing that lifelong, desperate need for his father's approval.
And Hassan's first word, Amir.
Wow. A sign of his unwavering and tragically misdirected devotion to the narrator.
They had this brotherhood, this kinship. The text says they fed from the same breast, which should have transcended everything.
And it's a huge but.
This is where we hit the hard wall of Afghan society at the time. Their personal lives were intertwined, but their identities were rigidly defined.
Amir was a Pashtun, Sunni Muslim. Hassan was a Hazara, Shia Muslim.
And the source is chillingly clear about this. Even though they grew up together, Amir himself acknowledged that nothing was ever going to change that.
That ethnic distinction dictated their entire fate.
And this Pashtun-Hazara division, it's not a minor detail. It's the historical engine of the conflict.
The Pashtuns are the dominant ethnic group, holding the political and economic power.
While the Hazara people, often identified by their distinct physical features, have faced generations of systemic marginalization, poverty, and outright persecution.
So even in the same house, Amir was the Aga, the master, And Hassan was the ghulam, the servant.
That societal reality just constantly undermined their bond, even when they were just kids playing together.
And you see that prejudice and the casual cruelty they faced?
The source material is full of it. These derogatory names thrown at Hassan and his father, Ali, things like Babalu, which means boogeyman.
Flat nose. Slant-eyed Babalu.
And these weren't just, kids being cruel. They were reflections of a deep-seated, institutionalized bigotry.
There's a small but really important cultural detail the source mentions, the word Jan.
Yes.
Rahim Khan often calls Amir Amir Jan. It means dear Amir or Amir, my life. It's a term of deep, heartfelt affection.
And it makes the betrayal that much sharper, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They had the potential for that Jan connection, but society and class just made their relationship transactional.
The real tragedy is that as kids, they saw each other as equals, as brothers.
But by the time they hit adolescence, Amir was already so aware of the social rules, the rules that allowed him to be cruel and demanding.
And that required Hassan to be eternally subservient, even after sharing the same roof and the same nurse's milk.
Let's move to the powerful figures who shaped these boys, starting with Baba, Amir's father.
Baba, he was, for all intents and purposes, mythic. They called him Tufan Aga.
Mr. Hurricane.
Exactly, a force of nature, a legend in Kabul.
The myth building around him is incredible. I mean, that story of him wrestling a black bear in Baluchistan.
With his bare hands.
Right. And it supposedly left him with 3 parallel scars down his back.
Yeah.
And whether it's true or not, no one ever doubted it.
That tells you everything about the scale of his presence, the expectations he carried.
And that presence was matched by his immense wealth and his philanthropy. He personally funded and built this huge 2-story orphanage.
All out of pocket. He refused to work with the corrupt government, even if it meant oiling the mustaches of city officials himself. He was a builder, a humanitarian.
And this is where his extreme contradictions really start to show. He was this figure of absolute moral rigidity.
He completely ignored standard religious piety.
He literally confronted the local mullah, Fatullah Khan, over drinking alcohol. He just dismissed the mullah's sermonizing. Baba had his own code.
A code built on a single, expansive principle.
He believed there was only one true sin.
Death.
And this is the critical insight we really need to unpack. He didn't just mean stealing money.
No, his definition was so much bigger. He said, when you tell a lie, you steal a man's right to the truth.
Devastatingly expansive. This moral absolutism is the key to understanding all of Baba.
But doesn't that immediately expose the deep, unforgivable hypocrisy that defines his whole life?
Exactly.
How can the source paint him as this mythic moralizer while also confirming he's the architect of the greatest lifelong lie that steals the truth from 2 different sons?
That's it, exactly. His intense moral rigidity, his absolute condemnation of theft, it functions as a psychological mechanism, a way to hide an intolerable secret.
He's projecting.
Completely. He projected his own self-loathing and guilt outward, trying to compensate for the fact that he was, by his own definition, the world's greatest thief.
He stole the truth from Amir, stealing his right to know his half-brother.
And he stole the truth from Hassan, stealing his right to know his own father.
And that hypocrisy fueled the whole strained dynamic with Amir.
Right. Amir felt like a glaring exception to his father's success. He was convinced Baba resented him for causing his mother's death during childbirth.
His beautiful princess.
Baba had wanted everything, and he expected that same masculine prowess from Amir. When Amir wanted to write stories, write poetry,
Baba just dismissed it as weak, effeminate.
and that amplified Amir's feeling that he was just a profound disappointment. The rejection made Amir feel such intense self-loathing. He said he sometimes wished he could open my veins and drain his cursed blood from my body.
Wow.
Baba's inability to express love, trapped by his own secret, it just created this cycle of resentment and unworthiness in his legitimate son.
Now, you contrast Baba's mythic status with Ali, Hassan's father.
Ali was perpetually grim, not by choice, but because of a congenital paralysis of his lower facial muscles. He couldn't smile.
And he had a twisted, atrophied right leg from polio, which forced him to walk with this sweeping arc.
His whole persona was one of quiet, deeply ingrained suffering. The source says his true soul was only revealed through his eyes. He'd found this profound resignation to his fate.
And his life was just marked by heartbreak. His wife and first cousin, Sanabar,
She ran off with traveling singers and dancers less than a week after Hassan's birth.
which was considered a fate far worse than death by most Afghans. It brought immense shame to Ali.
Yeah, and you have to remember the ethnic element here. Ali was Hazara, and Sandabar was notoriously unscrupulous. So it was this double layer of societal shame attached to Hassan from the moment he was born.
And those constant cruel insults like flat nose just underscore how dehumanized they were. They were seen as less than human.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the ultimate vulnerability we see in the next section. When you strip people of their dignity, you pave the way for betrayal.
Okay, so this all comes to a head during the kite fighting tournament, the centerpiece of the Kabul winter.
And it was so much more than just a game. It was a ritualized form of combat, treated a little like going to war, winning and everything.
The preparation was taken so seriously, the boys would build or buy their kites from specialists like Saifo.
A nearly blind old shoemaker, Amuchi, who was also revered as the city's best kite maker.
But the real weapon was the tar.
The glass-coated cutting line. Ground glass mixed with rice paste, spread onto the string.
If the kite was a delivery system, the tar was the bullet in the chamber.
Yeah. This was not a gentle hobby. It was sharp, competitive, and potentially violent.
And even before the tournament, we see the antagonist emerge, SF, the neighborhood bully.
Who already personified this kind of ideological violence. Even as a teenager, Asif openly admired Hitler.
He didn't just admire him, he wanted to emulate his racial ideology. He said Hitler was too late for Germany, but not for us in Afghanistan.
His goal was explicit. Rid Afghanistan of all the dirty Kasif Hazaras. He was already known as Asif, the ear eater. This is terrifying premonition of the political violence to come.
And this is where we see the first major example of Hassan's selfless loyalty.
Right. Asif and his cronies corner Amir, and it's Hassan who steps forward.
Defending Amir with his slingshot, he aims a rock right at Asif's eye.
That incredible bravery earns Hassan Asif's definitive threat that they'd had to change his nickname to One-Eyed Asif if he interfered.
That one action, Hassan, shielding the privileged Pashtun boy, guarantees retribution for Hassan later. It's a debt.
A debt established in blood and loyalty.
So we get to the core event, winter of 1975. Amir's motivation for winning is just singular and desperate.
He felt like a ghost in this house. He believed this was his one chance to finally earn Baba's genuine pride.
To finally stop feeling so unworthy.
And he does it. He wins. He cuts the final blue kite, and he describes the feeling as salvation, redemption.
And he looks up and he sees Baba on the roof, pumping his fists, hollering and clapping.
And Amir realizes it's the single greatest moment of his life. It solidifies everything.
But the euphoria, it lasts for minutes.
Because the price of that victory required the ultimate sacrifice from Hassan, the best kite runner in the district.
He chases down that last fallen blue kite, fulfilling his promise. For you, 1,000 times over.
Amir follows him and eventually finds Hassan cornered by Asif and his friends in a secluded alley.
Asif demands the kite as the price for Hassan's safety. He mocks him, a loyal Hazara, loyal as a dog.
And then he violently assaults Hassan. And Amir is paralyzed.
He's crushed by fear of Asif, but even more, fear of losing his newfound status with Baba.
So he crouches behind a crumbling mud wall, and he runs. He flees.
This is the central, unforgivable sin of his life.
His fear of losing Baba's love was stronger than his loyalty to the boy whose first word was his name. He chose self-preservation over courage.
And that unatoned sin immediately poisons the victory. He can't even look at Hassan.
Because he just sees his own cowardice reflected back. He becomes consumed by this desperate need to torment the now silent, withdrawn Hassan.
He calls him an imbecile. He's trying to provoke him to get the punishment he feels he deserves.
Yeah, leads to that brutal, symbolic pomegranate scene.
Yeah. He's pelting Hassan with the fruit, screaming, "Hit me back, God damn you."
He's craving the physical punishment, but Hassan refuses.
Instead, he picks up a pomegranate and crushes it against his own forehead.
The red juice drips down his face like blood, and he asks, "Are you satisfied? Do you feel better?"
And it utterly breaks Amir.
The internal torment had to end, and the only way Amir saw out was to banish Hassan.
So he stages a theft. He plants his new watch and a fistful of money under Hassan's mattress.
This action, planting stolen goods, is a direct, cynical violation of Baba's one true sin. He weaponizes Baba's own moral code against his victim.
And when Baba confronts Hassan, Hassan delivers his final protective sacrifice.
Instead of denying it and forcing Amir to confess the whole story,
He says yes.
he confesses to a lie to protect Amir from Baba's wrath. His loyalty is a tyram, his respect was absolute, even to his betrayer.
But the secret was out. Not in words. Ali, Hassan's father, he knew.
Instantly. In Ali's cold, unforgiving look, Amir realized Ali knew everything.
And despite Baba's tears, his plea, he called Ali the brother I never had. They leave.
They leave for Hazarajat, and they take with them everything Amir had ever known about comfort and innocence.
And just as that personal betrayal concludes, the national disaster begins.
The political storm finally breaks. First, the communist coup d'etat in 1978.
And then the Soviet invasion, the Shirawi, December 1979.
And that's it. That's the definitive end of the old aristocratic Afghan life, the start of decades of war.
The flight from Kabul was harrowing. The fear was just pervasive.
Yeah, this was the moment Afghanistan lost an entire generation of its intellectual and economic elite.
And during their escape, huddled in that claustrophobic fuel truck, we see Baba's heroism firsthand.
Right. He defies a drunken Russian soldier who demands to take a young woman.
A clear act of attempted sexual violence.
And Baba stands up to him, with a rifle trained on him. He demands, tell him he'd better kill me good with that first shot. He risks all their lives to protect her.
It's his moral code in its purest form, refusing to tolerate the theft of dignity.
But the cost of that escape was profound trauma. The source details the suicide of Kamal's father,
Who was distraught after his son was abused by the soldiers during the journey. The violence they fled just followed them.
and they eventually land in Fremont, California in the 1980s. But for Baba, America wasn't the land of opportunity.
No. Amir says it became a place for Baba to mourn his country, not a place for new beginnings.
And the decline in status was immense. Baba, this wealthy elite, was reduced to working 12-hour shifts pumping gas.
It wasn't just physical labor, it was a profound stripping of his dignity. In Kabul, his worth was inherent. In America, it was an hourly wage.
And he refused welfare, refused food stamps. He saw it as a humiliating theft of dignity.
He tells the officer, I work always. In Afghanistan, I work. In America, I work. Thank you very much. But I don't like it. Free money.
It's a direct extension of his moral code. Taking it would be stealing from those who earned it, and a theft of his own pride.
The culture clash was constant. He clung to his politics, praising Ronald Reagan.
The brash savior who took action.
Yeah.
And he dismissed Arab nations as gossiping old women for feeling the Palestinians.
Yet, for all that global perspective, he couldn't adapt to the simplest American customs.
Like the outburst at Mr. Nguyen, the grocery store owner, for asking for ID for a check. He just roared, "You think I steal your stinking $200?
The irony given his life, it's just profound.
But for Amir, America was different. It was a place to bury his memories.
He meets Soraya Taheri at the San Jose flea market, this hub of the Afghan community. Tea, politics, and scandal.
His swap meet princess. And Soraya becomes this critical foil to Amir. She shows immense courage and honesty.
She tells him about her past, running away with an older man, causing her mother to have a stroke. She lays her sin bare.
It's an honesty Amir just desperately envies because his own betrayal remains hidden, silently corroding him.
Baba's final months were marked by cancer. He refused chemo, choosing to lose on his own terms.
And his last major act was arranging the lafes, the giving of the word, for Amir and Soraya's wedding.
The Shirini Kori. He made sure his son was settled before he died.
He died having wrestled bears his whole life, only to lose to cancer. And crucially, he died without ever confessing the truth about Hassan.
The secret died with him, or so it seemed.
Then the narrative shifts to Amir and Soraya's struggle with infertility, and this brings up a conflict with General Taheri, Soraya's father.
Who strongly opposed adoption because of a need to preserve Pashtun blood.
He argued that you don't know whose blood you're bringing into your house. It's this traditionalist resistance that creates an ironic echo of the very divisions Baba tried to conceal.
And it foreshadows the huge challenge Amir is about to face when he tries to bring a Hazara child into their Pashtun family. Okay, so 15 years after the betrayal, nearly 2 decades after fleeing Afghanistan, we get back to that call from Rahim Khan.
He's in Peshawar, Pakistan, and he's dying of lung cancer.
Amir flies there, and he knows on a deep level that his past is about to catch up. He says his suspicions had been right all those years.
And that's when Rahim Khan delivers the crushing revelation, the thing that retroactively explains everything about Baba's life.
Baba was Hassan's father,
making Amir and Hassan half-brothers. The enormous secret that had defined Baba's moral struggles and poisoned Amir's childhood was finally out.
And Rahim Khan explains that Baba was a man torn between two halves. He loved Hassan, but he couldn't claim him because of the social stigma.
It was unthinkable for a wealthy Pashtun to acknowledge fathering a Hazara servant son. So Baba directed all his guilt, all his self-hatred onto Amir.
the socially legitimate half.
And Amir realizes the devastating truth. The betrayal was generational. He and Baba were linked not just by blood, but by a catastrophic lie.
Like father, like son.
The revelation gave meaning to everything. Baba's intense guilt, his philosophy that lying was the only sin. He lived a life of secrets and hypocrisy.
Karim Khan then fills in the gaps about Hassan's later life. He found him in Hazarajat in 1986.
Tragically, Ali had been killed by a landmine 2 years earlier.
And when Hassan returned to the Kabul house, he still held this immense ihtiram, or respect for Amir.
He insisted on living in the small mud shack out back, refusing a guest room, constantly worried about what Amir would think.
That concept of ihtiram is so key. It's not just respect, it's a deep ingrained reverence. Hassan maintained it for Amir despite everything.
And then a surprising figure returns, Senabar, Hassan's mother.
She came back ill and scarred, but Hassan, embodying his inherent goodness, nursed her back to health.
And she later delivered Hassan's son, Sohrab.
Named after the tragic hero in the Persian epic, the Shahnameh.
Yes, the story of Rostam and Sohrab, where a great hero unknowingly killed his own son in battle.
It's critical foreshadowing, naming his son after a tragedy of unacknowledged kinship and violence between a father and son.
But the family's peace was brief. The Taliban rolled in.
And though people were initially tired of the warlords, the violence escalated. They banned things like kite fighting.
And then, in 1998, during the Taliban's massacre of the Hazaras in Mazar-e-Sharif, the ultimate tragedy struck.
Hassan and his wife Farzana were executed by the Taliban for refusing to vacate Baba's house.
A house Hassan was protecting for Amir. They were shot in the back of the head.
And Rahim Khan, now dying, reveals the true purpose of Amir's visit.
To go to Kabul and retrieve Sohrab, now orphaned and stuck in an institution.
The mission was now terrifyingly clear. Amir was being summoned to atone not only for his own sin, but for Baba's sin as well.
To close the circle of guilt, or risk letting the consequences fall on the next generation.
And Amir accepts. He realizes, my hands are stained with Hassan's blood. I pray God doesn't let them get stained with the blood of his boy too.
He flies to Peshawar and meets Farid, the driver, who is immediately contemptuous of this returning Afghan tourist.
Farid thinks he's just there to sell off Baba's land and run back to America.
And Farid confronts him with the reality of his privileged exile. He says, that's the real Afghanistan, Aga Sahib. You've always been a tourist here, you just didn't know it.
And that forces Amir to face the fact that his wealth and distance have insulated him from true suffering.
But we see the beginning of his atonement in a quiet, symbolic act.
Right. They stay with Farid's brother, Wahid, and Amir realizes the family is desperately poor. The boys are staring at his food, not his watch.
And before he leaves, Amir secretly plants a fistful of crumpled money under a mattress.
It's a profound reversal of his childhood betrayal. Instead of planting stolen goods to falsely accuse Hassan, he's secretly giving money for a family's survival.
A true redemptive reversal of the founding lie. And Wahid, unaware of the money, later calls Amir an honorable man, a true Afghan.
The irony is that he finally earns honor not through glory, but through a secret act of charity.
So the journey back into Kabul was just this stark, agonizing contrast between Amir's cherished memories and the brutal reality.
The city was a scarred landscape. It smelled of diesel because everyone needed generators.
And the physical destruction mirrored the destruction of his memories. The orphanage was rubble, the poplar trees he and Hassan climbed were gone, chopped down for firewood.
The road was littered with the burned carcasses of old Soviet tanks, relics of 2 relentless wars.
And he realizes how utterly forgotten Afghanistan had been during his life in America. Farid was right. He was a tourist.
But amid the rubble, there's this moment of profound personal connection. He meets a blind beggar, Dr. Rasul,
who was a former colleague of Amir's mother, Sophia Akrami, and he provides the details Baba never would.
He tells Amir that his mother liked almond cake with hot tea, that she used the word profoundly a lot,
and that she once confessed her fear of happiness, believing they only let you be this happy if they're preparing to take something from you.
For Amir, these details were everything he had thirsted for, but had been denied.
He and Farid find the orphanage, run by a desperate director named Zaman,
who eventually explains the unspeakable horrors they faced. A high-ranking Taliban official would visit regularly.
And take children, often girls but sometimes boys, in exchange for money to feed the others, a form of protection racket.
And the worst news, Sohrab had been taken by that official a month ago. Zaman tells Amir to go to Ghazi Stadium.
Going to the stadium was an immediate confrontation with the Taliban's oppressive rule. The official, in black sunglasses, oversaw a public stoning at halftime.
Just a spectacle of state violence and cruelty.
When Amir finally confronts the official in a room afterwards, the man removes his sunglasses.
And it's Asif, the neighborhood bully, now fully empowered by the Taliban.
It's the perfect, horrific symmetry. The personal cruelty Amir fled had become institutionalized state violence.
Asif was now a self-described proponent of ethnic cleansing, empowered to carry out his hateful ideology.
And then, Amir witnesses the horrific abuse. Sohrab is brought in, dressed in a sapphire blue pure-hand turban with bells on his ankles.
And he's forced to dance for Asif and his guards.
Sohrab's eyes are described as slaughter sheep's eyes, darkened with mascara, the ultimate humiliation.
And Asif just mocks Amir, then attacks him with his stainless steel brass knuckle.
And this is the moment where Amir's decades of guilt finally find a release.
Asif is beating him mercilessly, breaking his ribs, rupturing his spleen, and Amir starts to laugh. Hysteric.
He laughs. Because that physical violence, that destruction, it's exactly what the source suggests. True atonement had to be physical, a literal payment of the debt.
The laughter is pure catharsis. He's finally getting the punishment he craves since 1975. The pain means his life as a ghost might finally be over.
And the final decisive moment comes from Sohrab.
Just as Hassan defended Amir with a slingshot years before.
Hassan's son uses his own slingshot to fire a brass ball into Asif's eye, neutralizing him.
Fulfilling Asif's long-ago threat to change his nickname to One-Eyed Asif.
The poetic justice is just overwhelming. Amir escapes with Sohrab, leaving Asif screaming. The reversal of the debt was complete.
So Amir wakes up in a hospital in Peshawar. The list of injuries is just gruesome. Ruptured spleen, broken ribs, fractured eye socket.
He has paid the price, physically.
But here's the most powerful symbolic detail of his whole journey.
The doctor reveals that the impact of the brass knuckles had cut Amir's upper lip clean down the middle,
leaving a jagged scar that exactly resembled Hassan's former hair lip.
He had physically taken on the mark of the boy he betrayed. He's permanently branded with the scar of his sin and his kinship.
Sohrab, though, is emotionally shattered. He's silent, withdrawn, consumed by trauma.
He's scrubbing himself in the bath every night, feeling dirty and full of sin after the abuse.
Which shows that while Amir achieved physical atonement, the consequences for Sohrab were severe and ongoing.
Amir tries to connect with him. He tells Sohrab the secret. Your father and I were nursed by the same woman.
And Sohrab confirms he knew, but adds the heartbreaking detail that Hassan always believed Amir was his best friend.
Just confirming the depth of Hassan's loyalty, despite everything.
Then the focus shifts to this brutal bureaucracy of exile. They meet with a U.S. official, Raymond Andrews.
And the news is bleak. The contrast between the human tragedy and the bureaucratic reality is just shocking.
Andrews, with this cold, detached callousness, explains how impossible adoption is. No death certificate, Sharia law doesn't recognize adoption.
The source highlights his detachment. He's petting his potted tomato plants while talking about orphans. He just tells Amir to send money to a relief organization.
Amir confronts him, asking, "Do you have children?" He says, "They ought to put someone in your chair who knows what it's like to want a child."
But eventually, a friend of Soraya's finds a solution. A humanitarian visa for Sohrab. They can bring him to America under guardianship.
But the ordeal isn't over. When Amir has to explain the complications to Sohrab, he makes a terrible mistake.
He suggests, in a moment of panic, that Sohrab might have to wait in an orphanage in Pakistan temporarily.
And that suggestion triggers a complete breakdown. Sohrab, terrified of going back to an institution, attempts suicide in the bathtub.
This is the absolute breaking point for Amir. He'd paid his debt to Asif, but his redemption for Sohrab was failing. He broke the one promise the boy desperately needed.
Waiting outside the hospital, consumed by fear, Amir, who hadn't prayed in 15 years, kneels in the corridor.
He performs this makeshift prayer, promising zakat and namaz if God would just spare Sohrab.
And this moment of desperation leads to a profound realization. He concludes Baba was wrong about God.
He sees God not in the marble mosques Baba dismissed, but in the eyes of the people in this corridor of desperation, this desperate, flawed hospital corridor that was the real house of God.
So Amir and Sohrab finally returned to San Francisco in August 2001, but the trauma persists.
Sohrab's consent to leave was not acceptance, but a quiet surrender. He remains mute, withdrawn. Soraya immediately sees the jagged pink lines on his wrists.
And Amir realizes he has to end the cycle of secrets for good. He tells Soraya's parents the full truth. Baba's lie, Hassan's identity, everything.
In a final act of defiance against the old hierarchy, he challenges General Taheri's prejudice directly.
He demands that the general never again refer to him as Hazara boy in my presence. He has a name, and it's Surab.
This public airing of the truth cements Amir's commitment to his new, fragile family.
The world shifts quickly after that. 9/11 happens, America bombs Afghanistan, the Taliban scatters, but for them, the quiet battle continues at home.
And the final, pivotal scene is 7 months later, March 2002, at an Afghan gathering in a park.
Amir, feeling the old instincts return after 25 years, decides to fly a kite.
He's reclaiming the very instrument that caused so much pain and betrayal.
And he says instantly he was 12 again. All the old instincts rushed back. Afghanistan never truly left him.
This was the ritual of his youth, but now it's performed for connection, not for glory.
And then comes the tiny miracle. He cuts the final green kite, feels that same rush from 1975.
But this time, the feeling is shared. He looks down and sees it.
A faint lopsided smile on Sohrab's face.
It's brief, but it's undeniable. And it mirrors the smile Hassan would have had after his hair lip was fixed. The trauma isn't gone, but the silence is momentarily broken.
Sohrab wasn't ready to speak, but he was ready to offer this tiny sliver of hope.
And Amir, channeling Hassan's ultimate loyalty, runs to retrieve the kite. But this time, he's not running for glory or for Baba's approval.
He realizes he's running with a smile as wide as the valley of Panjshir on my lips.
He's finally completing the cycle of redemption through pure, selfless action. He's running for someone 1,000 times over.
And this gives profound meaning to that Afghan saying, Zindagi Migzara, life goes on.
Yeah, it's not a passive fatalism. It's a commitment to forward action, despite the pain, despite the sin. It's the choice to run, to act, that allows for a new, if scarred, beginning.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? This story showed how the most profound secrets and deepest loyalties can transcend rigid ethnic and social barriers.
If a lie as great as Baba's fatherhood could be hidden for a lifetime, yet still claws its way out to demand decades of atonement.
It forces us to ask, what deep, unacknowledged connections or profound, unspoken truths might be defining our own lives right now?
What personal debts have we left unpaid that are simply waiting for the right moment and the right call to demand that we too find a way to be good again?